That's how all the magic happens.
This is how sweet, sweet music is made.
That's the whole podcast. It's just you guys counting down.
Yeah, it's just an hour and a half of us counting, and I can't count past 10.
You're either on the bus or you're off the bus.
Welcome aboard episode 35 of Ridin the Bus, the official Iowa Wild podcast presented by Explore Minnesota. The wheels are turning. We're on the way. Joey Goldstein, Ben Gislason with you here. Thanks for joining us. And in just a little while, three-time guest of the Ridin the Bus podcast, the first three-time guest.
Now the leader of the clubhouse.
Yes,
in
indeed.
terms of podcast guest.
Yes, indeed. Brett McLean, head coach of the Iowa Wild, will be joining us to talk a bit on last season for sure, but also his summer and also next season, which obviously the offseason is always interesting when you're doing these interviews because the further you get into it, the less you even remember about the season prior and the more... is there an official point in your mind where all of a sudden you're just like, you snap your fingers and the season that was is ancient history and you're ready to go for the next year, or is it a little bit more of a massaging point?
No, there is July 1st. Truthfully, the day that the new league year kicks over, that's when we start kind of truly turning the page. I mean, we're prepping for a lot of things now, but starting July 1, that's when all the guys that were on your team that are going to be free agents are now officially no longer a part of your team. So in terms of content and things like that, like we're more cognizant of who we're sharing images and videos of, and it's full look ahead. I mean, our look and feel will change and all that kind of stuff. So for me, that's when it turns over. Obviously, for someone like Brett, it's probably a little bit different. But in terms of not like remembering, coaches aren't like that. So they'll be able to pull things down, but it'll be nice to kind of look ahead. And it's a little tougher because when you look at the season that's coming up, it's a little tougher on the AHL side because there's a lot of uncertainty with every AHL team until you kind of get into camp and have a better idea of what your roster's going to look like.
Even then.
Yeah.
And there's uncertainty from day one to game 72.
So I think there's probably a lot that, and Brett talks about it too, in terms of identity and ways the team wants to play, but in terms of what the makeup's going to look like, that's a little bit trickier, and until you get a little closer to the season, we're not really going to know that. But still some really good insight in terms of what fans can expect this year in terms of how they want the team to play and what they're trying to accomplish this offseason.
And what he learned in year one as a head coach. So enjoy that in just a little bit. Before we get there, one of the reasons why we are still thinking about the 23-24 season is the 2024 Calder Cup. As we record this now, is still going on. By the time fans tune into this, it could be over, or it could be on the cusp for a second straight season of Coachella Valley and Hershey in Game 7. Only time will tell on that. But so far, thoughts on the early portion of the Calder Cup is the question of rest versus rust with Coachella Valley. Hershey had that obviously remarkable, grueling 7-game series. Didn't look like it was going to be grueling.
No.
It wound up being just that.
I presumed it did. So
yes. Meanwhile, Coachella Valley goes past Milwaukee in 5 games, and it looks like it right now, based off the opening few games of the series. As we record this, a fresh win for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, 6-2 over Hershey.
Yeah. Like we said, it's by the time you hear this, we're not gonna recap really individual game by game because we've only seen a couple been played so far. However, by the time this comes out, it could be over. 6 games will have passed, but if not, tomorrow night is Game 7. So it's in Hershey. That game is 6 o'clock Central. I got that one right. I know that one for a fact. So 6 o'clock Central time. But yeah, the rest versus rusting is real, and maybe not so much rest versus. I guess it's kind of rest versus rust, but it's more so when I think of Hershey. Did they just get all of it out?
They spend everything.
Did it all come out in that Cleveland series, which was in a very overtime games, very emotional games, hard games to win. You wonder if they just kind of put it all out there. Now we all know how good Coachella is, that maybe now they're just kind of struggling to keep up. From everything that I've seen through clips and through, again, plugging Patrick Williams, and
He's getting a lot of love recently.
Yeah.
And he deserves every bit of it.
yeah, and some of the other
Fabulous
AHL
writer.
writers. It just seems like Coachella is just firing on all cylinders, and they don't look tired. They don't look worn down, which maybe the rest, and they haven't played a ton of games because they've kind of rolled through the West, so that could be part of it. Maybe they're not as beat up. Maybe they're playing for Dan Bylsma, and his last time, they want to get him a win before he goes. There's probably a revenge element to it. Like, hey, we lost to these guys last year. We're not going to do it again. But they seem to be rolling along at a pretty good clip, and they don't really seem like they're going to slow down, whereas Hershey might have a couple of leaks here and there. They're just kind of, maybe they're a little bit more worn down. So I still think this goes a long way. I don't think Hershey's just going to roll over and die. They're not a team you can ever rule out. I would love to see it go to a Game 7. I think that makes for a great series. So we'll see how it goes. See what happens.
We'll see indeed. On the horizon, switching gears from where the Calder Cup finals are to where the rest of the AHL is on the golf course, you'll be donning your caddy gear pretty shortly here to get out on the golf course and serve your punishment for losing that horse racing bet that we had a few weeks back. Have you thought about that at all? I've thought about it a little bit, and I'm very excited for this. And I've decided we're walking. We are walking, and you're carrying my bag.
I have not thought about it, aside from the fact that the only thing I've thought about is that now the ball's in your court to facilitate and set this up. Like, you got to find the date and all that stuff. My hands are off of it until I need to show up at the course.
Well, hold on here. There's no way. Caddies, I would imagine, in the realm of professional golf, they probably help with the logistics and the scheduling. So why is this incumbent on, for all sakes of this discussion, the pro of this discussion to have to schedule it all? This seems like a caddy duty.
It's a great question, Ben. I'm glad you asked. Because you're not around at all. That's why. So it's your schedule is going to be when
That's a good point.
you have to let me know, and I will work with you as your caddy to be like, yes, I am available that day.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, but you're going to have to pick the time and all that stuff, and we'll.
That's fair. I have no rebuttal to that, because one of the reasons we're recording earlier than Friday this week is because of my schedule and having to be away for my brother's wedding, which will be fantastic.
Valid excuse.
Yeah, valid excuse. Somewhat hot off the press for the Iowa Wild. News on the roster, really early goings of the roster beginning to take shape, but a name that I certainly didn't have on my radar, nor I don't think anybody would expect me to have this name on my radar, and someone that I think the Iowa Wild are hoping is one of those players that comes out of the blue and turns into one of those late blooming type players in Matthew Sopp of the Kitchener Rangers. Matt Hendricks announcing a few weeks back, well, week and change back now from when we record this, that they have signed Matthew to a 1-year, one-way AHL contract, and that's the second person we know for sure, aside from other guys that are contracted through next year.
From a free agent
From a free agent standpoint, Gavin Hayne being the first. We all know him. We all loved him, watched him play last year, by Matthew Sopp coming in as a relatively unknown player, undrafted. But the thing, I when I look at what Matthew Sopp did with Kitchener, a very respected OHL program, overage player of the year last year in the OHL, had a wonderful season with 90 points in 67 games, and not always. I've seen it before where players come out of the OHL, the WHL with great point totals, and it just doesn't equate.
especially in an overage year.
Yeah, it just doesn't equate. But sometimes it does. And the other thing that lots of hockey people talk about is, and we've heard Brett McLean say this, we've heard Matt Hendricks say this, we've heard Mike Murray say this, growth and getting to the NHL is not linear. It's not an exact science. It's different for everybody. And the term late bloomer, if you're looking at this as what could Matthew Sopp be, that's what I think everybody hopes he could be, as someone who's coming out of junior, unlike a Carson Lambos at 18, 19. He's coming out at 21.
Yeah.
So you'll argue, well, is the ceiling is high? Maybe not. But some players develop later, and maybe Matthew Sopp is one of those guys, because seemingly flew under the radar a little bit. 167 points in 203 OHL games, yet Minnesota, Iowa Wild are able to claim him, and we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, I think he'll be a guy who's probably a good depth signing for us here in Iowa. And I think that the not linear progression piece is big, where you think about just guys being late bloomers. Some guys just come along later than others, and an example who comes to mind for me right away that the Bruins have right now, and Justin Brazeau, who he was a guy who lit it up really in juniors and then just kind of couldn't find his footing through the ECHL for a little while, the AHL for a while, but continued to produce at every level. And now he's basically locked himself into a full-time NHL role. So everybody progresses differently. Everybody comes along differently. But I'm excited. And like you said, the overage player of the year thing is great. There's there's plenty of overage guys that play. So to win that award of all those players is big. But to, it can be tough sometimes because you look at overage guys and these guys are playing against kids who are a lot younger. So it's a lot easier to put up big points. But a lot of times guys who do this, like, it's not a fluke because they're playing against younger talents, because they're legitimately talented, and the rest of his stats, not just in the overage year but the years prior, speak to that. Good numbers. Yeah, they're legit. So good person to bring in, and I'm excited to see who the next one on the list is.
Just Brazeau was a perfect analogy to that. The other guys that fans may remember, David Gust in Rockford was someone who was playing on an AHL contract, really lit it up once he got to Rockford after playing for the Chicago Wolves prior to that. Ended up getting an NHL contract. Ethan Frank and Hershey is another guy that I think about. Who there are these players that, for whatever reason, they just haven't quite found the right conditions yet to be that next guy. And maybe Matthew Sapp is that, and maybe he's not, and maybe he becomes just a good, solid AHL player. But I think we're always going to try to look at it like this player could be the next thing, and certainly Matthew hopes that that's the case for him. So, and just exciting to see what another player that will be wearing a Wild jersey next year, and we'll look forward to getting more thoughts as we get to know Matthew over the next few months here once he gets into training camp in the fall. With that, anything else we wanted to touch on, cover before we turn the page to Brett McLean and get his thoughts, certainly more educated hockey thoughts than you and I could ever try to deliver.
I think we're good to send it along.
Let's do that. For the third time in Ridin the Bus history, our first three-time guest and now second-year head coach of the Iowa Wild, Brett McLean, is on the way.
Before we get to our interview with head coach Brett McLean, we have to once again shout out Explore Minnesota. Explore Minnesota's newsletters and travel guides are your go-to for planning a magical summer getaway. From seasonal activities to monthly events, sign up today and plan your next trip. Visit exploreminnesota.com to learn why Minnesota is a star of the North. Well done.
That was pretty good.
Star of the North, spending time in the state of hockey where he calls home now. Well, BC is always home, but Minnesota has become the home away from home for head coach of the Iowa Wild, Brett McLean, who joins us now from Minnesota. Brett, as Joey and I have talked about already, it's weird when you don't get to see somebody that you're so accustomed to seeing all the time throughout the course of the season. So it's really good to catch up with you today, and thanks for parking some time for us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see both of you guys.
Well, let's start with this. We've asked you for a great bus story before as a player. When we had you on back when you were an assistant coach of the Minnesota Wild, let's ask a similar question, but now as a staff member. And maybe it could be from this past season or a different time on the bus as a staff member. But when I say a great bus story where you were not a player, but you were a coach, what jumps out to you? Is there anything that you can think on and laugh on? I know I can think of a few from this year that I can laugh on for sure with you.
Yeah, there's always a few. Let me try to get a good one. It'd be great to have one from this year, but we'll see. I guess I got to go from my time of being an assistant with the Iowa Wild. This was, I can't remember if it was my second or third year as an assistant, but it was under Tim Army. And the way our old bus was, as you guys know, with the Iowa Wild, it switched this past year, but it was the Bunks bus, which was just a great bus, and it had. Basically, it was almost like a futon that you would sit on, and then the back cushion would fold up, would be the middle bunk, and then the bottom would be the lower bunk, and then there was a bunk up above that you could fold up or you could fold down, and it basically had seatbelts on either side to hold it up. And so we had a player named Dmitry Sokolov, who was the young guy on the team, the youngest player. So he got for sure the worst bunk that a player could get was that he had to sleep above the players. or excuse me, above the coaches. So I think it was myself and Freddie Chabot, the goalie coach, where we would sit there down below, and then when it was time to sleep, we would fold the middle bunk up. And but as we were still working, Dmitry Sokolov went to get up to the top bunk. And the one rule with those bunks was as you pulled yourself up to the top bunk, you couldn't pull on the seatbelt because that just put too much stress on it. And sometimes that would buckle. Well, this time it buckled right down, and I got very lucky. It could have been a nasty injury. My computer, thankfully, took the brunt of the bunk coming down and was just smashed to pieces. It was bent back completely 180, and it just got absolutely beat up. I survived. We all survived. Dimitri survived, but we got a real good story out of that one. And we definitely took a cautionary tale out of don't pull on the seatbelt part of it to get up to the top bunk.
My follow-up.
I'm sure IT loved that too.
That's a great way to get our bus ride started. My follow-up to that is, did your good friend and at the time, well, my predecessor, but at the time, broadcaster and team services director Joe O'Donnell take the blame for it being a bus malfunction in all of that hoopla?
No, I think Joe was probably sleeping by then or hiding at that point. He was nowhere to be found. I don't remember Joe at all involved in this story whatsoever. So, no, he stayed away from this one. This one, yeah, but it was that was a good one. That was a wake-up call.
No kidding, pun intended. As Joe always told me, keep your head down. That's an example of keeping your head down.
Yeah.
Well, Brett, we want to touch on the year that was, but we also want to talk a lot more about what is ahead, and not only what's going on now as you prepare for free agency coming up here in July, but in what will be the 24-25 season, and we're all extremely excited about that. I know you and your staff are as well, but let's start with this one. One of your lines this year that I thought was just so good was, it was the best, worst season ever. Because it was, and I can speak to that. Joey can speak to that. Why did that become the title for it at the end of the season for you?
Well, I just think that, the care and the compete and the attitude that the players came to the rink with each and every day. You looked at the standings, and obviously you'd think that it was a tough place to come to work every day, and it was just the opposite. And that's a credit to all these young men that they kept believing in what we were trying to do, and they kept believing that they were getting better every day, and they worked for each other and made sure that it was something that they could take pride in and they could enjoy each and every day. So that's why we kind of kept saying that. And I remember Brad Bombardier came down there with a couple weeks left in the season, and he thought he was going to be walking into a very somber locker room and somber attitudes, and it was just the opposite. He was just blown away at the energy there was in practice and the level with which guys were still committed to what they were doing. So that's kind of why we continued to label the season that way.
And Brett, you set the tone, and the ability that you had to put the staff together to create that cohesion. It starts with you, but you had help. And one of the guys that I think about who was always greatly lightening the mood is your assistant, Ben Simon, who I had no idea, because when you look at him on the bench, he's very stoic and he's got a pretty good death glare. I remember that from when he was with Grand Rapids. But this guy, he found a prank gag store in Des Moines that no one knew about. This guy is Mr. Prank. Can you think about the best Ben Simon prank from the year, or even a few of them where you think back and just go, I was gut-bustingly laughing because of one of the antics of Ben?
Yeah, we don't get through this season without Ben Simon. Just with all the, we had some challenges this year. Obviously, I'm a first-year head coach, and we lose a very valuable assistant coach in Patrick Dwyer, and good for him. He went to Minnesota, but that's just an example. You don't get through a season like this without a Ben Simon who can just, like you said, lighten the mood, but also the workload he can do in a day. I think there's nights he doesn't sleep. When we play back-to-back games, I'm certain he doesn't sleep on those nights, just the amount of work he puts in. But, man, he was always playing some jokes. I think the best one I think of is our assistant equipment manager, Brandon Big B. him and Ben have a very, very good relationship, almost a older brother, younger brother relationship. And he's in charge. Ben Simon's in charge of taking care of Big B, is what we always say. And so he, for some reason, found again at one of these stores he finds that he made up, a picture, one of those frames where it's a picture and it has a write up about the person, and then he posted it where Big B Brandon, where usually his nameplate would be, into the office for the equipment managers, but it actually ended up looking like an obituary. So it was just like people would walk in and be like, "Oh, is Brandon okay?" Like it worked out. It wasn't on purpose. It was just more to lighten the mood and to make some jest toward his good buddy Big B. But it ended up looking like an obit, and man, it was just one of those that worked out really, really well. And I don't know if it was intended as that.
I know exactly where that is. We're gonna get that up for our fans to see it on the YouTube side, because I know exactly where it is.
Not far.
Not far.
No, correct.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, guys who helped bring levity, and probably someone that fans don't even know a whole lot about. But the really, you could almost call him the lifeblood of the staff a little bit, was video coach Ray Sylvester. Same idea, lightening the mood, but does it differently. Not as much pranks, but just who he is and how he operates. Certainly he got the most laughs per words this year, if you had to really parse it out. Why is he able to deliver what he's able to deliver? And that is really one-of-a-kind humor. I mean, what are some of the Ray Sylvester moments that you think about that just provided so much levity this season?
Yeah, well, there's plenty, and I'll get to those, but I got to start with, again, Ben Simon, we already touched on him. What a great hire, and by that I'm not patting myself on the back, anything like that. I mean, we got lucky kind of finding Ray. There was a lot of people applying for that job, not to put it down or anything, but he was a young USHL video coach with not a lot of experience. We had 10, 12, 15 of those people apply for that job. And somehow he really stood out during the interview process. And he's an absolute rock star. I mean, at 25 years old, to be able to do what he can do and walk right into a pro environment. And we expect our staff to run like a National Hockey League staff. So to come in at that age with not much experience and to be able to do his job, he just did an amazing job. So that's a huge credit to him. But then also in that role, there's a feel aspect to it. You've got to, because, it can get, every day we're doing it can get very monotonous, our job, and especially if maybe the wins aren't coming. But for him to be able to, to use your term, to bring levity every single day, again, with not having a ton of experience, was just incredible. And that's why I say he's a complete rock star. The sky is the limit for Razor. We feel very lucky to have him, but he just, while we're Ben Simon, he's maybe doing a big prank and he's setting something up all day to get the best of someone. Ray, we'll just be working. We'll be talking just like we are right now. And then he'll just come with a little one-liner and it'll just change the whole day for the better. And he just, the one thing with him is whenever you talk about, so he's originally from Pittsburgh. Okay. So whenever you talk about a Pittsburgh sports team, for some reason, he would start talking about it in a Southern accent. We don't know why that is, but this Southern accent would come out, and then the rest of us would start talking in a Southern accent, and all of a sudden, you would have thought we were these cowboys from Texas talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it just no idea where this came from, but he just really was able to bring that to our staff, and really was a huge glue person. And obviously in that role, that's a big part of what you do too, is you're connecting everyone. And so, yeah, we had a ton of fun with Ray. But actually one of the little stories about him that's hilarious. So when you talk about a hockey tournament, right? I think we all agree that's how you'd say tournament, right?
Correct. I know we were going with this one, and indeed it is tournament.
You guys agree? Well, Ray would pronounce it as if tournament was like the real true letter for letter tournament, he would call it. So I think it was maybe the World Junior Hockey Tournament. he would be like, what's the score in the tournaments games? And he would continuing to do that. So there was a lot of those little nuances in his speech as well that we had a lot of fun with.
It's so obvious, and I've learned this about you working with you, but this interview is a perfect example of how you run things. It is about we, it's not about me. And you speak so glowingly about your staff, and you can do it about every single member of the staff, coach or otherwise. You lean on people, head coaches lean on people, and you brought up being a first-year head coach last year. I'm curious, did you have anybody outside of the Wild organization that maybe a mentor from the past or a coach in the past that maybe on a night where you weren't sleeping, where you're after a rough loss, where you're scratching your head going, I haven't been here before. What should I be doing as a head coach? Was there anybody that you leaned on during the course of the season to help answer some of those questions?
Yeah, quite a few actually. And obviously when you're not winning and you're not getting the results you want, which unfortunately we went through many stretches of those last year, you question what you're doing. It's natural, human nature, right? We all believe, and myself last year, I believed we were doing the right things each and every day, but when you're not getting the results, you have to question it. You have to question everything to try to get better, to make sure that we're giving our players the best opportunity to grow and to win games. So yeah, there's many times. Brad Larson is a good friend of mine from many years. He's another British Columbia native. So we talked a few times during the season. He obviously got let go from Columbus at the end of the last summer, and so he wasn't coaching last year. So I leaned on him quite a few times, and he had a lot of success in the American Hockey League as well. Probably no surprise. Also, Dean Evison. I leaned on him quite a bit. Again, he extensive experience in the American Hockey League, so no surprise that I would call him and ask for his questions. And he was the hard part about talking to him was he was on the golf course whenever I was talking to him, and happily. So it was just tough getting him off the course, and he'd be giving me heck, saying, "Hey, stop bugging me. I'm playing really well here." So. No, but he certainly was a big help. So yeah, those were just a couple names that of guys that I certainly leaned on for many different reasons.
Talking about the full staff, obviously Cody Franzen has departed from the organization, so he's moving on, which means we've got a vacancy, which I assume is a role that we want to fill relatively quickly with development camp and all these things coming up, especially with the young prospects. But you talked about Ray's position on the video side and having all these applicants come in. What does that look like on the assistant coach side? Like, how many applicants how many people are reaching out to you guys inquiring about this position, and what's that process been like for you guys since the announcement for Cody?
Yeah, well, a little bit different this year than last year. And last year we had to fill the entire staff, so that was a lot. Also, I just think with the announcement of a new head coach, that kind of goes out on the wire, gets a little bit more action on the wire, so to speak. So last year was flooded for probably a month, just calls and emails of applicants, which is great. And so kind of had to sift through that. This year, a little bit different. Yeah, we put out the announcement regarding Cody and want to thank Cody for just doing a great job coming in mid-season, mid-stride, really helped us out with the defense. He decided to stay back with his family in Kelowna, British Columbia. He's got 3 young kids, and it's a big decision to move your entire family and to start in this coaching life. So he's decided to stay in Kelowna, which we totally understand and wish him the best and thank him for his time. So, but now this year with that announcement, maybe no offense to Cody, didn't make as big a splash. So we didn't get inundated with a bunch of calls, but we got, a good 8 to 10 real quality candidates and really, really good ones. And then that's probably the difference between having to hire an entire staff versus having to hire only one staff member, is that we can kind of take our time and we want to really make sure this is the right person. And we've got done some interviews here last week and this week, and have some really, really good possible coaches that could join our staff, and we're narrowing it down now. And I think us as coaches, the players, the organization, the fans are going to be very, very happy with who we add to our staff. And the biggest thing for us is the fit within the team and the staff. And we feel very confident that we're going to have a very, very good name to announce to our fans here shortly, and someone that's really, really going to help our young players.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's exciting stuff. I didn't want to cut you off there. I was gonna ask if you were cool with me kind of jumping to look ahead now, but if you get,
I was gonna do the
finish
same
out on
thing.
it.
God, we're so good.
Yeah,
we're so dialed in as podcast part. Exactly. Let's jump ahead. Let's look ahead. Let's look at next season through last season's lens. Brett, first year head coach going into second year head coach, which means when training camp starts this fall, you hit the ground running immediately. The learning, the earning of respect from players that has to happen when you're a first-year head coach. There's no more of that now. That respect has been earned. The precedent has been set. I really think about the sustained stretch of play at the end of March into April where everybody started to look at the Iowa Wild and go, that's what this team is. That's the identity. Do you feel that what was that identity towards the end of the year? And do you think that that's going to be a big part of what you're trying, the tone you're trying to set come training camp in September?
Yeah, there's no doubt that we laid a foundation there toward the end of the season, and with so many players returning, obviously there's going to be turnover, always is in the American Hockey League, but a lot of really quality, especially young players returning that know what's expected of them now. They know what's expected from a work rate on a daily basis in practice, from a professionalism to how we want to play. And kind of one of the things that we talked about a lot last season, and it took us until March to get to it, was being hard to play against. And we talked about it time after time. And I'll repeat myself again, being hard to play against, there's many different forms that looks like. And that's not just hitting people, although that's part of it. That's not just fighting, although that's part of it. That's being on the right side of pucks. That's being ready to start every game. That's having numbers back on our tracks. That's getting to their net and being in front of their goalie. And we really did that toward the end of the season. So now all these returning players know that is expected of our team, and the new players that we add, they're going to get up to speed on that really, really quickly, or expected to, if they want to earn that ice time. So, and then the other thing is just to touch on kind of what you talked about is myself and our staff going from first year now to second year. We really feel like we know what we want to focus on when we first gather at Wells Fargo Arena there in early October as our team, as the Iowa Wild. We really know the style of game that we want to play and the emphasis we want to put on certain areas. For example, we feel like breakouts and D-zone coverage are just two huge things that we're going to spend a ton of time on, really build that foundation and let that build in to the rest of our game.
Looking at it's obviously, we talked a little bit about it. It's hard to predict exactly what the roster is going to look like for the coming season, but there's probably a couple guys who we saw a little bit of last year, but in little bit spurts, guys like Pavel Novak, Kyle Masters, Jack Peart. When you look ahead to the upcoming season, can you tell us a little bit more about how you guys view those players who our fans may not be super familiar with because they weren't here all that much?
Yeah, well, Jack Peart really thought it was hugely valuable for him to come to us at the end of the season, just to get that experience. Now, again, going back to the last answer that I just had, now he knows what to expect when he comes to the American Hockey League. He knows how good it is. He knows how competitive it is, how hard it's going to be. So really, really good for him. And Jack's not the biggest guy to play defense, but sees the ice really well, moves really well. He's an exciting prospect for us. Obviously, like all of the young D, learning to defend, learning to keep people out from the front of our net is going to be that challenge for him, as it is for every single young defenseman that comes into pro hockey, but a real exciting player for us. Kyle Masters, obviously an up and down year for him. Not just talking about getting sent down to the ECHL, but also just in his play, a real dynamic player, fantastic skater, really good offensive tools. We felt really learned how to be a pro from a not really even an on ice, but more an off ice perspective last year. Really young. He was only 20 years old last year, like really, really young man. So just maturing. If you look at him and you talk to him, like he's still a kid when you talk to him, and his muscle definition, things like that. So it's just with young players like that, they just a year of growth, a year of working out, just things like that makes a huge difference. So really excited to see him kind of challenge, hopefully for an everyday spot in our lineup next year. Pavel Novak, you're not going to find a better young man, and what he's been through is obviously well documented, and I and all of us just think the world of him. Had some really good stretches for us last year where he really brings a lot of energy. He can shoot the puck, he can score goals. Again, he's going to be a guy that's coming in, and nobody's going to compete harder than Pav. And he's the type of guy that only helps your team, having him with our team, because he's going to give it everything he's got every single day. And there's certainly some tools there that he can help us. And again, he had some real good stretches last year. So hopefully he can sustain that for a longer period of time.
Aside from those three guys, there's the Caden Bankiers, the Carson Lamboses, the David Spaceks. But one thing I wanted to ask you about today, Brett, was, and you may be able to share with us, you may not be able to share with us some of these names, but are there other prospects that Iowa hasn't seen yet that you guys know right now are going to be coming into the American League this year that are Minnesota Wild picks?
Well, the one that jumps out is Hunter Haight, who had a very, I believe he's a second rounder, I believe, and obviously had a fantastic season, winning the Memorial Cup Canadian Junior Hockey Championship with Saginaw Spirit. Was a huge part of that team. Real versatile player, can play center or wing. We kind of have him penciled in more to start at center, but we'll see how that goes. It's good to be versatile. We have quite a few players like that, so that's a good thing. Not the biggest guy, but good kind of motor. And what we mean by that is he's competing all the time. He's going all the time. His feet are moving. He's a smart player. So I had a really, really good prospect camp for us last year, and prospect tournament for us last year. So we'll see him at development camp. We'll see him at the prospect tournament, see him in the Minnesota Wilds camp. So he should be a real good add for our team. And obviously there's going to be those, that learning curve for him stepping into pro hockey, but all indications are he should be a really good add to our otherwise really positive young group of forwards.
Outside of prospects, is there a prototype once free agency starts here? And you've already made a couple of moves, bringing back Gavin Hain. Matthew Sopp also signed as well from Kitchener. But is there a prototype? And we asked Matt Hendricks this question too, so I'd imagine the answers there might be some synergy to those answers. But prototype that you're looking for, where you think about what the team was last season and what they could have used as you look ahead to 24-25.
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on it a couple of answers ago. Was that hard to play against team, and that would be kind of what, from my perspective, the coach's perspective, the guys with some sandpaper, as we say, that maybe play with a little bit of an edge, right? And again, that's not necessarily fighting. That'd be a great ad, but that's just playing hard, getting in people's faces. Players like that, that kind of that Mason Shaw type of player, right? That just, you've got to have those style of players. And you look at a lot of our prospects and our younger players, they play hard. And no, I'm not saying that, but they're more on the skilled side of things. That's just kind of the players we have in our prospect pool, even on the D side. So, to kind of balance that out and to probably teach them the other side of the game, I think those players with some sandpaper, also some size. I think we need some size on our team. A lot of our players aren't the biggest guys, so it'd be good to kind of balance that out. And I think talking with Minnesota, that's exactly what they want to get. And I sat in on a couple of weeks ago on all of the scouting meetings for a week here in St. Paul with all of our scouts, and so what John Hines wants, what Bill Guerin wants for the Minnesota Wild in those depth players getting called up, they want some size. Kind of what the word they use is they want them to bring an element to the game that's a little different. They want them to come up and be able to take face-offs, be able to kill penalties, be able to add a physical presence to those third and fourth lines when they get called up to the Minnesota Wild. Works out great for us because that's exactly what we need. So if they were to kind of, hopefully they're looking to sign, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, whether it's forward and D, that can go up and down between the two teams. It does work out well that what they're looking for is exactly what we kind of need and would like to add to our group. So hopefully that works out well for us there in early July.
I can tell you right now, I will be borrowing the term sandpaper and using it on broadcasts this season. That is a guarantee. I love that term as a guy who obviously loves terms and ways to describe hockey. Anything else you wanted to touch on, Joey? I only got a couple more questions for Brett.
I am all good.
To finish, 2 things, really. The offseason, the summer, hockey people have to take advantage of it, especially in your situation, because of this is the most valuable time you're going to get with your family, your 3 children, as well as trying to keep tabs on your business up back in BC. So I'm curious, how much time on the ball diamond this summer, getting some time in with your daughter, and also have you been back to BC yet to check out the brewery up there, B&A?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with BC. So I haven't been at the brewery yet. I did fly back to see my parents on Vancouver Island as soon as the season kind of ended, just to see with them. They're in their late 70s now, so want to spend, they're doing great, but just want to spend as much time as I can with them. And I miss them a lot, obviously living in a different country. So I did go back there in the middle of July when baseball season ends. Here in Minnesota, we will all go back and we'll see my parents again on Vancouver Island, and then we'll go up to Kelowna, which is a short flight from there, and we'll go up there and then we'll check out the brewery. Actually, I've got a shirt on here. This is Skinny Duke's, one of our other restaurants. This is a logo for that. So I'll go check that out. Our businesses up there, B&A Brewing and all those great spots. But it's just been, this is a very special time and for myself and my kids and my wife, and just being here, just being everything. We're just whether it's going to Starbucks as a family, or it's going to a baseball game or soccer game, or just going for lunch with Darian, our daughter. It's just it's a great time of year, and it's kind of why we put in all the work that we put in. But then as we get moving here into the draft and development camp, the itch starts to come back a little bit, and it's always good to see our staff and everyone and all the prospects, and to start to kind of get back into that hockey mode. Looking forward to next season.
Work hard and play hard. That's a hockey motto for
That's
sure.
how it goes.
That is a hockey motto for sure. And I should also mention, one of the first things Brett did for the hockey ops staff down here when we started the season, came in one morning and everybody had a fresh B&A Brewing shirt on their desk. So we
ship internationally. We could use sponsors. Sponsor a segment. I don't know. Think about it.
Brett, anything we missed? Anything that was burning that you said the Wild fans need to know this while I'm on riding the bus here today?
Well, I think the one thing I believe the team set records in attendance last year, if I'm correct, and just to the Wild fans, just how appreciative we are of all the Iowa Wild fans and the support that we get. Obviously, it was a challenging season on the ice, but fans never wavered, and we're always there and had our backs, and we look forward to being an even better product next year on the ice and having many more wins, and just can't wait to see everyone very, very soon back at Wells Fargo Arena.
This conversation has already excited me for the fall. This is maybe my first off-season itch that I've had, where I'm like sitting here talking with Brett, talking about the team, diving into it. I'm not ready for it yet, but a little bit of me a little bit of me was like, this really got me excited for the season. Brett, thanks a million. Enjoy the rest of the off-season, and we'll see you at development camp.
Sounds good. See you very soon.
On to period 3, and a huge thank you to Brett McLean. Enjoying his summer months. A guy who has so much more going for him than just being the head coach of an AHL team. Obviously, it jumps out what a family man he is, and drinking in the family time as someone who didn't get to experience much of that this season, living in Des Moines while his family was still staying back in Minnesota. And also the brewery as well, which we touched on a little bit in there as well. That's a fun little bit that he's got going up back in his home province of British Columbia. So thanks to Brett. And I know he wanted to get in and out because he wanted to get back to his family, which is just a testament.
I can't blame him.
Yeah, no, either can I. That's always a treat. And I hadn't caught up with him in a while, so it was fun to get to see him and talk to him again because we obviously spend so much time together. The Hockey Ops group here, we all do. And full marks to him and what he was able to do in his first year at creating a culture down here. Not that the culture under Tim Army needed fixing, but he really put an onus on that. And the staff it was the tightest staff I had worked with in anywhere. My time with the Buccaneers, my time here, and he was the one who really led that and made sure that everybody was cohesive and together, and I have nothing but respect for that move because it made this past year the most enjoyable one I'd had to date, and that's saying something considering the wins and losses weren't where they were, and Brett echoed those same sentiments as he called it the best worst year ever, and that's really what it felt like at times, and I think it rings very true when you watch him and you listen to him just how genuine of a person he is. So thanks to Brett, and into period 3 presented by the Wildware Shop. Is that available in the Wildware Shop, or is that staff swag there?
No, this is a Wildware Shop.
It is a Wildware Shop.
That is staff.
This is staff swag.
This is Wildware Shop.
I took a real shot in the dark at that one because you could have been like, no, this is staff swag, and no one can get their hands on this, but they can get their hands on this.
Yep.
How can fans get their hands on some great swag?
Well, Ben, I'm glad you asked. Wildware.com, the official online store of your Iowa Wild, with the largest selection of Iowa Wild fan gear, one-of-a-kind apparel, and exclusive specialty merchandise. There's always something new at wildware.com. Don't miss out. Head to the website now and start shopping. I was actually just kind of combing through things today, and there's like hats and shirts that I'd never seen before on the Wildware Shop. So there's truly always something new whenever you look. We actually just spent, Kelsey and Morgan, and with the help of some of the staff, have been inventorying, taking inventory of
the act of inventorying.
Yes. Of everything we've got. There's going to be a big summer sale coming soon. That'll take place probably just after the 4th of July at some point, where a lot of stuff's going to be discounted, so keep an eye out for that. That's probably the biggest thing on the horizon for the Wildware store, and hopefully by the time so you guys are going to hear this on the 25th, which is when our staff has 2 league meetings in Chicago, and our hope is that by the time we come back we get some hardware to talk about. Would be nice, some awards. I think the merchandise team has a really good chance to bring some of that home this year. We thought they should have won it last year, and things only got infinitely better for them this year. So,
like the Coachella Valley Firebirds, so close. They want that revenge. They want that trophy.
Yep. So I think that's kind of what we're looking at. But the other big thing is this is probably the last time people will hear from us, at least until like the second or so week of July.
Maybe even the third week, probably, because great point. 4th of July is obviously big holiday. A lot of people taking time off work, yourself included, myself included. The following week, development camp for the Minnesota Wild. So we'll get to see some of those second-year pros, the Lamboses, the Bankiers will be there. Also, some of the guys we know that are there working out in the summer. Mikey Milne's going to be around. He's one guy that we have on our list to sit down with in person. You won't be there. I will be there. Mm-hmm. We haven't decided if we're going to try to Zoom you in or not. Not for one of those. But Lee
Ogren's a guy who I know he's been up there. I saw think it was.
I think he went back. I want to say he was there early, but I think he went back. Have you seen something recently from him up there? Okay. I want to say Baker said he was only there for a bit.
That's what I thought too. And then I saw it might have been Mikey Milne's story. It looked like Banks and Nemo were playing basketball 1-on-1 against each other. So maybe he's got back. Maybe it was like one of those. He took the picture and posted it like later. Graham posted it later. I don't know.
A later Graham?
Don't worry about it, Ben. Don't worry about it, Ben.
We already spent enough time on my social media.
Yeah, we don't have to do that again.
Lack thereof last week.
Yeah, we don't have to do that. But
could be until probably mid-July until we get the next episode.
But with league meetings and the holiday week and then the development camp. But after that, we're again every week we're going to stick with for the most part. So.
And then we can stop trying to take guesses of what we think is going to happen in the Stanley Cup and Calder Cup at that point, because it'll for sure be over.
Yeah, we can take guesses on other things.
Because, man, my pick on the Oilers losing in Game 5 did not look good either. So we're not going to talk about what's happened because we don't know what's happened at this point. But I was wrong again. Surprise, surprise. So it'll be nice to not have to do that anymore and feel like we need to talk about it, but no, we can't because these episodes come out so much later. Before we get to... another staff spotlight with another new employee. Let's talk about a couple of July events that we've touched on before, but it's worth retouching on them again coming up. On July 13th, the free Iowa Barnstormers Wild 365 event is coming out for Wild 365 members. The Iowa Cubs game was a smashing success. The Barnstormers will be no different. And then also one of your and I's favorite summer activities, if you are a Wild fan, staff member, any kind of connection to the Wild, is the summer block party, which already was such a great success last year and I know is new and improved this year as well. There's going to be plenty more things to look forward to for the block party at the Science Center of Iowa. Am I correct on that? And that's coming up on the 16th of July, presented by Home Solutions of Iowa. So plenty to look forward to if you are a Wild 365 member or just a fan of the team or you want to learn more about the Wild and hockey. Great way to do that by coming to the block party and having some fun while you're doing it.
Yeah, we've got an RSVP form out there, and this isn't an event where I'm talking about the block party. It's not an event where you have to RSVP to show up. The RSVP just gives us an idea of like how many people are really going to be there.
Got bouncers at the gates. Did you RSVP? No, get out of here.
Yeah,
that sounds like us.
But last year we had about 200 or so people RSVP. This year we're already close to 400. So it's growing a lot, and like we said, it's going to be a better. More like we're continuing to grow that event, so it's bigger and better. The other thing that I actually didn't put on the agenda, but just thought about now, Junior Crash Course.
Yes.
Registration is open for Junior Crash Course, so if you've got a child age 4 to 12, whether they're boy or girl, we're going to pull 100 kids basically. They get fitted with free equipment, and they'll get 6 on-ice sessions with the help of Des Moines Youth Hockey and hopefully some of our players to really learn the game for the first time. So registration's open for that. The big things, you can't already be a USA Hockey member, and if you've participated in the past, we're really looking for people who haven't participated prior, so we continue to grow the game and whatnot. But definitely get on there, register. That'll be going for a couple weeks, and then probably mid-July is when people start to hear back on whether or not they're selected. So Midwest Construction is now our presenting sponsor of the program. Pure Hockey's helping us out, formerly JT's hockey shop, which is now Pure Hockey, so they're helping us out. HSI, again, another participating sponsor, so that's a really fun program. It's fun seeing the kids progress from week 1 to week 6, where week 1 there's always a lot of tears. And people are uncomfortable being on the ice, and their feet hurt. I remember my first year coming out here for a crash course, and there's a child who was just bawling and really didn't want to go on the ice, and mom or dad were like, if you do this, we'll go get ice cream after. Tears went away.
There you go.
And the kid had a great time. So sometimes it's a little bartering back and forth.
But that I have been that child crying while trying to skate before. This reminded me of a story. My mom loves to tell this story. When there was a little kind of culvert in our driveway growing up. My dad eventually put up this fabulous rink, but this was when I was older. There's just a part where water you could pool it up if you sprayed the hose in there. And so when I was just starting to walk, put me on skates, and I was obsessed with, at this time, there was only one Mighty Ducks movie, the original one.
Yep.
And I apparently would watch it on the old VHS, VCR, watch it, rewind it, watch it, rewind it, just over and over and over and over and over again. And so finally when I got to the point where I could walk and then go skate, I think in my head I thought I was going to go out there and be Adam Banks.
Yeah.
I was going to just get out there and
That's
be
what everybody
jetting
thinks.
around
Yeah.
and no problem. And I got out there and I fell right away and I just lost it. I just thought it was going to be this natural event, and it was not.
It's not.
So I have been that child before. And for that child out there, if you keep trying, you will learn to skate.
Yeah.
If you try hard enough, you can figure it out, even though it seems
Practice. You just got to
like, yeah,
practice.
do it again
over
and again and
over
again.
over.
Yeah. Well, Junior, a great call bringing that up, because Junior Crash Course is one of the many fantastic things that we do here to try to help grow this game and continue to do that now into year 12. Bus line?
Let's get into it.
Okay. What do we got this week?
We get a good one. We get a good one from a gentleman in West Des Moines. Before we do that, a reminder, Bus Line, give us a call. Give us your questions, your feedback, your comments, whatever you want. We're here. You just want life advice from Ben and I. We can.
Yeah, who wouldn't want that?
We can attempt to give that to you. Will it be good? I don't know, but you can try and ask. The Bus Line, 515-318-7863. Give us a call. Get in the mix. Here is our voicemail for this week.
Hey, Ben and Joey, this is Mark from West Des Moines. I live over by Recplex. My kids play at Recplex. I go to Recplex. Question here for the podcast. How do the players keep their skates tied during the game? Sometimes I tie my shoes, I'll walk down the road a little bit, and then I'll trip over my shoelaces. So I'm wondering, how do they keep their skates tied during the game? And they're moving a lot faster than how I walk with my regular shoes on. Big fan, long-time listener, first-time caller. Thank you. This is Mark from West Des Moines.
All right. This is why I like the Bus Line, because this is something that, as again, I told the story earlier about putting on skates at such a young age. I don't think about it, right? But for someone was new to the game, and shoelaces do come untied all the time, yet you don't see skates come untied, at least on the ice, very often.
It may seem like a silly question. I've tied my shoes 3 times today because the shoelaces keep coming undone, so I get it. But yeah, I mean, I think I think it helps the way like this skates are made to some degree. There's with the eyelets and whatnot, but there's different types of laces which people may not know. Like you get your standard cloth laces. Sometimes it's preference, but there's wax laces too, which they're more grippy, I guess, for lack of a better term. When you're trying to tighten them, they hold better within the eyelets. They don't slide as much as the regular cloth laces, and obviously when you tie them, there's more friction there, so they don't come apart. So yeah, I mean, it's just tie them tight, I guess.
And guys tie them really tight. I think for the most part, I mean, when you watch somebody tie skates, they usually really reef on them, right? The only guy, I heard a great story about Johnny Gaudreau, and I don't know if he still does this. One of my good friends played against him when he was in Dubuque in the USHL. He was playing for Des Moines actually at the time, and he said that it looked like, he never played with him, he said it looked like Gaudreau just did not tie his skates. All he basically did was just tie the knot at the top, because when he cut, his blades would almost go not perpendicular, but parallel to the ice,
which is crazy because that's like the worst thing. The whole point of guys tie their skates, and that's why skates are so form fitted to people's feet now, because you don't want you want it to feel like it is your foot. The more wiggle room you have,
you get blisters too if they're
harder
loose
to skate, and you're more efficient when it's super tight to your foot. So to hear someone of his caliber,
and he obliterated the USHL too when he was doing that. And my buddy said it was impossible to tell which way he was going to go, because his ankles were just always flopping around, and all of a sudden he's going this way, and I've never forgotten that that reminded me of that when that question was asked. So yeah, a combination of the wax laces, tying them tight. And your point was a really good one too, with the way the eyelets are so much different on a hockey skate than they are on your average shoe. They're meant to not come undone because the aftermath of skates coming undone on the ice can be catastrophic. Because if you step on a lace, you're going down.
Yeah.
So that's how the rare times I've seen it. I've seen some bad spills because you'd expect to be able to plant, all of a sudden you're not, and then you're going down.
There's always a couple other things too. I think like some guys wear shot blockers, which sometimes go over laces is an option. I know it's not super stylish, but I've seen people tape them down too, like tape the knots down, which will help from having the bows and whatnot flying around. So everybody's got their own method to it to some degree, but for the most part, it's just tying them real tight and using the wax laces.
I always had laces that were about because you can get different lengths, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I always wrapped them around the back. That's how I was taught, and I never caught flack for that as a player. Maybe it was more of a thing in my generation of being a player. But I remember, I forget who it was, but we do some staff skates here, right? And there was a couple players that were lingering one afternoon, and we went out to skate, and I went out on my skates, and I forget who it was, but it's one of the players walked by, oh, gross, and just instantly laid into me for tying around the back. And I'm like, what? And he goes, who does that? Like, they'd never seen it before. Yeah. And it blew me away. I think it was one of the younger players, but I'll never forget that. And now every time I tie it around the back, I'm like, am I getting judged for this? Is the one person cleaning the garbages around Wells Fargo Arena, are they looking down at me, judging all the fans that we have during our staff skates? Are they judging me for tying my skates around the back? Maybe they are. The players certainly are. Last time I wear my skates around the players, I tell you that much.
Yeah, until we do our goalie challenge.
Well, you're putting that out into the world. I didn't know that we'd firmly committed to that. Well, now we have to.
I think we're committed to it.
Now we have to.
I'm committed to it, and I lost, so that's true. I don't know. I'd love to get you in the pipes.
I would pull something. I'd be out of commission.
If I didn't pull something, you're not protected, but you're in a lot better shape than I am, so I think we're...
Thought you were gym buddies now.
Yeah.
Gym buddies.
Yeah, I didn't see you yesterday, though. That was weird.
Because I got done before you.
Or the day before.
So. I go Tuesday through Thursday.
Yeah, well, I'm there Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And Tuesday, Thursday. So, 5 days.
You're going 5 days a week.
Yeah, man.
That's impressive. I'm impressed by that.
Yeah,
I only do 3.
We'll see if it does anything. I can't tell anything so far, besides you just now.
It's the long game.
I know. All right.
Speaking of long, we're getting long-winded now. Let's take a quick pause, shuffle around, and welcome in Abby Kill, our new videographer, for our staff spotlight.
We're back. Well, not all of us are back. I'm back. Ben, classic, not here as usual. But we're here with our staff spotlight. This is Abby Kimball. And Abby is someone who you guys may not see a ton of because she's going to be spending a lot of time behind the camera helping us put together these podcasts and all of our video content throughout the year. So Abby, welcome to the Ridin the Bus podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So staff spotlights, these are we're just trying to get to know you a little bit more, get to know you with the fans. So kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you got to this spot, and what you're looking forward to most about joining the Iowa Wild organization.
Yeah, so I'm coming from the University of Missouri, Mizzou in Columbia, Missouri. I'm originally from Illinois, but back in Mizzou, I worked with the hockey team there, and they played in the ACHA, the American Club Hockey Association, and I just got involved with them through mutual friends and did some video for them. I started just using my phone as a camera because that's all I had, and progressively worked my way up. Fell in love with it, fell in love with the sport, just working in a team atmosphere, and they were a great group of guys to be around, and I just wanted to stay in hockey, and when this position opened up, I'm just very thankful to be here. So
you said I know, kind of plug your ears, Wild fans, but you're a Blackhawk fan at heart, which
sorry.
We'll get that out of you, I'm sure. But like, what was your first like core hockey memory that like got you just hooked on the sport?
Core memory, my dad had a friend working for the Blackhawks growing up, and so going to the games was really fun. I loved how fast-paced it was. Sports like baseball, I've always struggled to I've always loved going to them, but like sitting down and actually watching it at home, hockey was the only sport I could actually do that with and like stay engaged. And it was just, I mean, if you've ever been to the United Center, it's just electrifying. It's such a cool game day atmosphere there, even though the Blackhawks are not good right now. But it's still fun. You go for the environment.
Yeah.
So.
And that's something that we have here is, I think a lot of, whether it's hockey or any sport really, that game day environment, that experience is a big part of it. And that's what we try to do, is create a great experience for all of our fans. And whether we're winning a game 10-0 or losing the game 10-0, you want everybody to be here and having a good time. So that's certainly a goal. You've got a trip coming up.
I do.
Pretty big trip.
I do.
Talk about that. Tell the people what you're doing, where you're going, and some of the things, like the top 3 things you're most excited to do on this trip.
Yeah, so right before I even applied to this job, I booked a girls' trip to Europe. When, post-grad, never going to get the chance to do it again. Might as well just full send it. So we are going to Greece and Italy, some of my college roommates and I. I am so excited for all of it, honestly. Obviously the food, the pasta, the pizza, the wine, like everything. The architecture, especially like I know we're doing, Rome, Athens, Pompeii, just all of those historical sites. And probably just like the beaches, the scenery, just a change of Midwestern pace. I mean, Illinois is very flat. So
is Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa compared to Illinois, it's like I think the drive here is kind of scenic because I have to like go up and down a little bit, whereas Illinois is just like so flat.
Sure. What are you looking forward to discovering most about Des Moines?
I don't really know. I'm just excited to like kind of be in a new environment. It's nice that it is, still the Midwest, so it's definitely familiar, but it's still new. I'm excited to just like get to know people and kind of get to know where the hot spots are, I guess you could say. Cool little local like coffee shops, restaurants, concert venues for sure.
Big concert person. We talked about music a lot. So if you're out there and you're listening right now and you see Abby at games or events and you got a coffee spot she should check out or a restaurant, definitely let her know. Last question for you. What are 3 fun facts
God.
people should know about you? You got hidden talents. It could be any favorite foods, favorite movies. Just 3 facts about Abby.
I guess some facts. I grew up playing a lot of instruments, so I've played piano for like 15 years.
Okay.
Guitar, violin, ukulele.
I have a ukulele.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at it.
So everyone has a
one.
ukulele. Like
I got it during COVID. I don't use it a
classic
lot.
time to get a ukulele.
Yeah, it's not great. I can play Somewhere Over the Rainbow, kind of, and that's kind of it. Yeah.
Gets you somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I cannot skate. I can try. It won't go well. So if you see me on the ice, that means something's definitely wrong.
Abby, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Everybody out there, we hope you have a chance to say hey to Abby at an event. She'll be at the block party, so definitely say hey when you're there. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks to Jeremy Core at Executive Podcast Solutions. Thanks to our sponsor, Explore Minnesota. And thanks to you, everybody out there, for watching and listening. Make sure you go like, subscribe, leave a review, do all that stuff. It is vital to our success. We appreciate it. And as always, 2 honks for the win.